Hi, and thank you for tuning in to Patient's Pride, Taking Back Control. I'm Sheila Shaw, and I am your host. This evening, we're going to talk about intuition. Oftentimes, when we're dealing with a chronic illness, we go to our doctors. We get this sneaky feeling that maybe we're not getting the care that we think we should, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, we don't listen to our intuition. So this evening, our guest is Twana Walker, and Twana is going to talk to us about the experience that she had with her mother. Unfortunately, in 1992, her mother was dealing with heart failure, and unfortunately, she lost her life due to that. And we're also going to be speaking with Peggy Spears, as always, who is going to offer us some wonderful insight. So first, I'd like to address this to you, Twana. And I first want to say thank you for even being on the show and sharing this, because for those of you that are out there watching, you know, anytime we have a situation and we can help others by telling our story, it's extremely important that we do that. And this is what Patient's Pride, Taking Back Control is all about. So, Twana, in 1992, your mother, unfortunately, she passed away.
Yes.
I do know that from what you were telling me about your mother, she was very active, very proactive, but over a course of time, she kind of felt like she was losing control. So I'd like for you to just share with us, from your experience going through this with your mother, what happened.
Okay, yeah, she had several things that were going on with her. Initially, she was diagnosed, she had hypertension, diabetes, and she did have a heart condition. And she saw several doctors. She had one doctor which she had seen for, gosh, probably 20 years, and had a lot of confidence in him. And I think that over the years, initially she was, you know, let's figure this out. I know something's not quite right, and she saw certain symptoms that were taking place, and just had that feeling, you know, we're not quite getting it. She'd get different medications, but not feeling as though it was really getting to the root of the problem. But eventually, she just did not fight like she did initially.
Well, let me ask you this. At any time, did any of the family members say, Mom, we think you need to go and see another doctor?
Yes, and actually that was a part of the problem. Was she saw several doctors. She went to a teaching hospital, and they were fascinated with her case because they really could not quite figure out what was going on. She saw a specialist for her heart. She saw a specialist for each area, but I don't know that there was any one person monitoring all aspects of her health. They were very specialized, so the disease that she had was being treated by specialists, but her overall health and condition was not being addressed. So we did recommend to go see someone else, and she did actually see another physician, but I don't think they really looked at her overall health and all aspects of what of her condition.
So, unfortunately, so she was going from doctor to doctor, and while she's going to doctor, I'm sure they were all giving her a certain type of medication.
Exactly.
And eventually, it probably turned out to be just over-medicated.
Yes, definitely, and that's exactly what happened. She was on, I would say, probably 8 to 10 medications.
Oh.
And what ended up happening is that the toxicity level in her system was so high that ultimately when she went into the doctor, or she actually went to the emergency room, that thing of intuition where I just felt like something, you know, Mom, you need to go. And she said, oh, I'm fine, you know, I'll be okay. We had a vacation plan. She didn't want to spoil it, and we just insisted, no, you need to go. And she went into the emergency room, and literally they took her off of almost every medication she was on because the toxicity level was so high in her system. But unfortunately, when they took her off of the medications, fluid built up around her heart, and ultimately, you know, she lost her life.
Yeah, and you can't come down off of those that many medications that quickly. And this is kind of similar to what happened to me when I was in 1998, I believe it was, when I had my grand mal seizures. We were on the phone calling my doctor, you know, hey, Sheila's not feeling good. She's getting sick constantly. What can we do? And it seemed as though, and I'm certainly not here to badmouth our medical professionals, but the bottom line is he was not paying attention to my symptoms. And what landed up happening is I had 3 back-to-back grand mal seizures. And Peggy, I'm going to bring you in at this point because I know that you were with me. You experienced that. You were the one that actually called the ambulance. And have I thanked you for that?
You're welcome.
Okay.
You're very welcome.
So tell us what happened with that, you know, with my situation.
With your situation, my goodness, talk about intuition. I had a family event that night, and I actually stayed over because something told me when you were vomiting and getting very sick, I said, I just don't think you should be alone right now. And then calling your doctor, and I remember talking to my family, I can't go, and they're like, what? And I just felt, no, I need to be there. Something inside me, we have to look within. Anyway, so what happened is when I called, and when you were very, very sick, flu-like symptoms, the receptionist was rude, absolutely rude, and if I ever see her, I want to tell her that you were rude and mean, but he was just like, oh, it's no big deal, oh, just go to the store and do this, oh, she just has a flu. Well, no, you don't understand, her blood pressure is, I believe I have to look at my records, but it was 220 over
160.
No, it was 160 over 115. Or 120. So very high, alarming high. Oh no, she just has a flu, go to the store. But my intuition was thinking, go take her to emergency. But I followed what he was saying, and then that evening you had the 3 grand mal seizures.
And you know, the interesting thing is the best thing that ever happened to me was having seizures, because I don't remember having the seizure, you know, but I remember when after I came to and I was feeling better, and my family members, including Peggy, were telling me what happened, they were advising me, you know, you really need to think about getting another doctor. Although my intuition was telling me that I probably should, you know, unlike your mother, where she was a trooper and she did go trooping around and got another doctor, I couldn't get myself to do that because I was afraid. I'd been under his care for 3 years. I was really sick. You know, he told me over and over, Sheila, you're my favorite patient. Your blood work is excellent. Did the doctors ever tell your mom that her blood work was good and whatnot?
Oh yes, oh yeah. I mean, she heard, you know, gosh, the medication's working, and you're doing a lot better. Her blood pressure was under control. She was taking insulin for diabetes, and she actually had a seizure several years earlier and was still on. I kept asking, I'm like, Mom, you haven't had a seizure for I don't know how many years, but basically her doctor said it's a good idea that you stay on that medication, and that's why you haven't had one. But there were specific circumstances. It was prior to our wedding. It was a lot of stress. She stayed up all night, and a lot of things that I think took a toll, where it probably was just an isolated incident that seizure took place, but she was on the medication for years afterwards, and never being encouraged to get off of it.
But oh my goodness, that is just a terrible experience to go through, especially when you're on the other end and you're watching. You know, for us patients, it's a little different because we're living it, and we're not seeing it in the way of you can't really jump in and help. You feel rather helpless. And Peggy, I want to direct this to you because I know that in 2002, your mom, unfortunately, she passed away as well. And it was almost the same situation to where, you know, she's calling out for help, but it seemed that the medical professionals weren't really listening. It was the control was being slipped away. I mean, we look at our medical professionals as our saviors oftentimes. They're the ones we're counting on to have the answers. And when they don't seem to show an interest in our life and the life we desire to live, regardless of how old we are and what ailment we're dealing with, you kind of lose hope. And I saw that with your mom, Peggy. And I know that, you know, when your mom was going through her illness and you girls were dealing with, well, I won't say the medical facility, but I know you felt rather helpless, and